Commander Jake Sullivan had seen many strange things during his 3 years aboard the interstellar research vessel Harmony, but nothing quite prepared him for his first encounter with a Veluxian. The diplomatic mission to Velux Prime was supposed to be routine, establish trade relations, exchange cultural data, maybe secure some mining rights. What the briefings hadn't mentioned was that Veluxians were perhaps the most contradictory species in the known galaxy. "Commander Sullivan," announced Dr. Reeves, the ship's xenobiologist, "meet Ambassador Zyrathi, representative of the Veluxian Consortium." Jake turned from the viewport and immediately understood why the preliminary reports had been so sparse. Standing before him was a creature that seemed designed by a committee that couldn't agree on anything. She stood roughly 7 feet tall on digitigrade legs, her skin a shifting pattern of iridescent scales that flowed from deep purple to electric blue. Most striking was her tail, thick as his arm, easily 6 feet long and currently swishing with what he could only describe as nervous energy, but it was her face that caught his attention. Despite the alien features' large, luminous amber eyes, delicate gill slits along her neck, and a mouth full of sharp teeth, there was something undeniably expressive about her. Beautiful, even in an otherworldly way. He realized he'd been staring when her tail suddenly lashed out, striking him across the chest with surprising force. Not enough to truly hurt, but definitely enough to get his attention. "Ow!" Jake stumbled backward, rubbing his chest. "What was that for?" Ambassador Zyrathi's scales flushed a deeper purple, and she made a series of clicking sounds that the universal translator rendered as indignant sputtering. "You ... You were looking at me, human." "Well, yes," Jake said, confused. "You're the person I'm supposed to be meeting with. Where else would I look?" Dr. Reeves cleared his throat nervously. "Commander, perhaps I should have mentioned Veluxians have very complex social protocols regarding eye contact and attention." The ambassador's tail continued its agitated switching. "It is highly improper to stare so directly upon meeting. Your species lacks basic courtesy." Jake, properly chastened and not wanting to cause a diplomatic incident, immediately averted his gaze to the floor. "My apologies, Ambassador. I meant no disrespect." For a moment, there was silence. Then a soft, almost plaintive sound. When Jake risked a glance up, he was startled to see that Ambassador Zyrathi's scales had shifted to a pale, almost translucent blue, and her large eyes seemed to have developed a distinct droop. "Commander," Dr. Reeves whispered urgently, "I think you should look at her again." "But she just hit me for looking." "Yes, but now she looks like she's about to cry." Indeed, the ambassador's shoulders had sagged, and her magnificent tail was now dragging on the floor behind her. She kept shooting quick glances at Jake, then looking away when their eyes met. "Ambassador," Jake said carefully, "are you ... all right?" "You won't even look at me anymore," she said, her voice carrying a distinctly pouty tone that the translator somehow managed to convey perfectly. "Am I so hideous that you cannot bear the sight of me?" Jake stared at her in disbelief. "But you literally just whipped me for looking at you. That was different." Her scales flashed bright orange, what Jake was beginning to recognize as embarrassment. "That was formal protocol staring. This is you ignoring me entirely." Dr. Reeves stepped forward, consulting his tablet frantically. "Commander, according to my notes, Veluxian social interaction requires a very specific balance of attention. Too much direct eye contact during initial formal greetings is considered aggressive, but complete avoidance afterward is interpreted as rejection or disgust." "So, what exactly am I supposed to do?" Jake asked, fighting back a laugh despite the absurdity of the situation. Ambassador Zyrathi's tail perked up slightly. "Well," she said, her scales shifting to a warmer purple, "perhaps occasional glances? Respectful appreciation of my ... diplomatic bearing." Jake caught the slight emphasis on diplomatic bearing and realized something that both amused and impressed him. Despite the seemingly impossible social protocols, Despite the contradictory behavior, the ambassador was actually quite skilled at what she was doing. She was managing to establish a rapport while simultaneously testing his adaptability and patience, crucial qualities for any successful diplomatic relationship. "Ambassador Zyrathy," Jake said, allowing himself to meet her eyes for a brief moment before glancing respectfully away. "I believe we're going to work very well together." Her scales brightened to a warm golden hue, and her tail curled in what could only be described as pleasure. "Oh, I do hope so, Commander. Though I should warn you, wait until you meet the negotiation council. They're far more complicated than I am." Jake groaned inwardly, but found himself smiling. Humanity had spent centuries learning to navigate the complexities of their own species' social protocols. Apparently, the galaxy was just going to be more of the same, only with more scales, tails, and the occasional whipping. "Dr. Reeves," he said, "I'm going to need a much more detailed briefing on Veluxian social customs." "Already prepared, Commander," the doctor replied, hefting a tablet thick with data. "Though I should mention every family group has slightly different protocols." Ambassador Zarathi's tail swished with what Jake was learning to recognize as amusement. "Welcome to galactic diplomacy, Commander Sullivan. I think you humans are going to fit in perfectly." As Jake watched her scales shift through a pleased spectrum of colors, he couldn't help but agree. If humanity had learned anything, it was how to adapt, how to find common ground even in the most bewildering circumstances, even when that involved being tail-whipped for looking and guilted for looking away.